thank you to the Anglo-Portuguese Society for organizing this event, and Pedro agreeing to moderate the event, and of course Fernando and the embassy for your involvement. So as Pedro said, I think as a starting point, it will be interesting to look back at why I opened Bar Douro in November 2016. I spent my childhood in Porto, and it's very much the place that I call home. And my family have been making wine and port in the Douro Valley for 200 years. So it's a place that I'm very attached to and extremely passionate about. My father, Johnny Graham, actually founded Churchill's Port in 1981. And it was in 2014, when I was working for Churchill's, that we opened a pop-up port bar in London on Greek Street. And really the aim of the Churchill's Port House was to engage a younger audience to drink port. But also during this period, I was exposed to London's the vibrant restaurant scene that is Soho. And I also was introduced to concepts such as Barafina and Morito that were doing exceptional things for Spanish food. What always surprised me, and I couldn't really understand, was why there wasn't more representation of Portuguese food in these central London foodie hubs. And this then spurred me on really to launch a series of supper clubs in London, with the focus of exploring Portugal's regional gastronomy and regional winemaking. It was also an opportunity to gauge demand for what soon would become Bar Douro. And following a summer in Porto in 2016, where I traveled around the country, learning about regional traditions, both in food and wine, forming relationships with suppliers and forming relationships with producers. We finally opened our doors in November 2016 in a railway arch in London Bridge in Flatiron Square. The real aim of Bar Douro was to celebrate Portuguese food and wine by making authentic flavors, authentic dishes, and authentic wines accessible to Londoners. And it was also important to create an authentic experience. And I think you can see through the design that we really wanted to capture that feel of being in Portugal. And from the azulejo tiles, which we sourced from Cerâmica Bicesse, which is one of the last tile factories in Portugal that still hand paints all their tiles, through to the marble counters, which are made from Portuguese stone, which we imported from Avedo. So yeah, I think coming back to what we do at Bar Douro, it's really celebrating the breadth of Portugal's offering, looking at those regional stories and digging a little bit deeper into what differentiates the food in the north from the food in the south to the food in the Azores in the middle of the Atlantic. We have a photo of our wonderful team who have been incredibly instrumental in our success to date. And each of them in their own right, an ambassador of Portugal. And all of them incredibly passionate about sharing their knowledge with our customers. And I think one of the things that I'm really pleased with is not all of our team are Portuguese. In fact, a lot of our members, Rob, our restaurant manager, is from Yorkshire. Our operations manager, Sol, is from Argentina. And what's really great and wonderful to see is how these people from other nationalities have really become excited and interested by what is going on in Portugal and the wealth of its offering. And I feel this is a real testament to Portuguese culture. So how would I describe our offering? You know, as I touched on, we really look at a regional approach to both our food and our wine. My background is wine, and I'm really proud of the wine list that we've put together at Bar Douro, and which has involved building and nurturing relationships with independent producers across the country. And actually it was a very proud moment in 2019 when Wine List Confidential from the drinks business awarded us with the best Iberian wine list in London. And they celebrated our use of maps. And I think that this has been something that we've always tried to share with our customers is the geography, the different terroirs, the different grape varieties, of which there are over 250 native grape varieties, and of course traditional winemaking techniques. And we'll come back to our wine offering a little bit later in the conversation, but to talk a little bit more about our food, you know, really, as I mentioned, we are celebrating dishes and flavors from north to south. And, you know, our octopus with sweet potato has become a bit of a signature dish at Bar Douro. And I first actually tried this combination in Tavira, down in the Algarve, which is Portugal's capital of octopus. And, you know, it's been one of these dishes that has just stayed on our menu from day one. But we explored dishes from all areas, and lovely, but it was really invented by a Jewish community living in the Trás-os-Montes, right in the northeast of Portugal. And during the time of the Inquisition, they would make sausages out of game, but with the intention to look like they were eating pork, and therefore avoid persecution by the Catholic Church. And you know, I'm not going to go into all the stories behind the dishes, but this is the sort of wealth of history and tradition that we're trying to bring with our small plates at Bar Douro. And just to comment on the small plate format, you know, we decided that we would serve our food in a small plate format to encourage people to explore, to encourage people to try different flavors and to learn about the varied offering that Portugal has. And even our beautiful pata negra ham, which you just catch a little glimpse of in the corner there, which we source from an artisanal producer in the Alentejo. And pata negra, you know, is often associated to Spain, and you know, they have a very, very rich tradition of curing meats. But what's interesting is a lot of the pigs, the black pigs that are acorn fed, actually come from Portugal, and there are some fantastic products coming from the Alentejo. And I guess sometimes what's a lot of our customers who come to Bar Douro, you know, may have a preconception of what Portuguese food is. And, you know, often that is, can be limited to piri-piri chicken or pastel de nata. And really at Bar Douro, we're trying to celebrate a little bit more than that, dig a little bit deeper under the surface. And this is an example of a slightly more challenging dish, which we had on our menu when we opened London, Bar Douro City. And these are fried eels from Avedo, which is a town in the north of Portugal and right on the coast. It's called by many people the Venice of Portugal, and it's one of Avedo's great exports. It's dressed in a suckling pig sauce, which again is very typical of the region. And I was very unfortunate when I was doing research for these dishes to go and spend a lot of time in Avedo and visit, you know, some institutions like Casa Vidal, which, you know, has the best suckling pig on the planet, and you know, real gems. If you ever find yourself in that part of Portugal, make sure you get to somewhere like Casa Vidal, because it will be incredibly memorable. And then just the last shot of food, just to give you a bit more of an idea, is of our desserts. And this is Abad de Priscos. And Portugal has an incredibly rich tradition of eggy desserts. And obviously the pastel de nata has become iconic in London, and, you know, an incredible Portuguese export, but there are hundreds of other egg-based desserts like this one, which was actually hails from the Minho in the very north of Portugal and invented by a priest who the dish actually takes the name, the Abbot of Prisco.